What up, what up? My name is Davis Baum, and today in my parents' garage, we are looking over mistakes in Kurt Vonnegut's Bluebeard. Let's do it. Bluebeard is a fictional autobiography that includes a fictional memoir by a fictional painter of the abstract impressionist art movement, and that's pretty confusing. But there's a lot of ideas in Bluebeard, and since it is a pseudo-memoir with a pseudo-autobiography, you can tell that there's a lot of reflection and action that goes on, back and forth, back and forth. And the structure of it just kind of goes to spur that even more. As you're going through his life, he interjects with what's going on, as this person came in and said this person came in and that. I looked outside and I saw that. And you're seeing the self in reminiscence and the self in action juxtaposed against each other. And out of that comes a great assortment of themes. One of the bigger themes, and I think it's pretty obvious this is one of the bigger themes that will come out of this novel, is the themes of mistakes and the mistakes we make in our life and how to learn from mistakes. Can you teach an old dog new tricks? Well, let's find out. This story is told from the perspective of the fictional painter Rabo Karabekian. There's many things that are very interesting about Rabo, but one of the most foundational aspects of his character is his, ethnicity. He is the son, he's a second generation immigrant. Both his parents were survivors of the Armenian genocide in the early 20th century. There are many very important symbols and lines that come out of that genocide being a part of his parents' history and it kind of relating down to him. And you see that very early on in the novel, and then it just keeps going on and gaining importance. On top of his ethnicity, his life journey and his identity revolves around being an apprentice of the hyper-realistic and famous painter Dan Gregory, who was also extremely abusive. After that, he was a soldier in World War I who specialized in camouflage. After that, he was married, was a founder of the abstract impressionist art movement, was divorced, became a laughingstock of a painter, estranged from his family, remarried a person of the Taft dynasty. Now she passed away and he's a widower all alone in the Hamptons. Like, what's going on? So even though he's a fictional character, me personally was instantly like, I want to know as much as possible about this person. He was such an interesting character to get to know. And if you love kind of comedic novels that take a serious look with levity, this is a great one. I don't think I mentioned this either. Rabo only has one eye. He's a cyclops. He frequently refers to himself as a cyclops. Rabo is pretty hard on himself. I wouldn't say this, but Rabo frequently says throughout the novel that he is a failure in every aspect of his life except for being a soldier. So he carries with him a huge amount of regret, shame, vitriol turned inwards, and a lot of this book is him grappling with his past while trying to confront the present. Being that he was a soldier and an artist and a family, and his family prior had come from a genocide, this book is full of this, that, and the other in terms of themes. But for what I'm interested in this video is mistakes in our life and how we can grow from our mistakes. And that is a huge, huge thing in this novel. So his life was full of mistakes, as many lives are, but Rabo really likes to dwell on it. And one of the moments that he dwells on the most should be his family, but what it is the painting. Rabo can draw perfectly. He has an immense amount of skill in terms of drawing, but he's always hated his paintings for one simple reason, and it's a lack of soul. What does it exactly mean for a painting to have or lack soul? What is that? I think The Picture of Dorian Gray is a good novel that kind of addresses that one detail. I forget the painter's here. I think it's Basil. When Basil is discussing his portrait of Dorian Gray, and Dorian is supposed to be the sexiest guy of all time, he says that every time a good painter paints, they paint a little bit of themselves in the portrait. So the portrait isn't just of Dorian Gray, there's a little bit of something of the artist inserted into it. And it's not something that is readily available to the eye. It's something you just understand, like, oh, that was Basil right there. And this quadrant of the painting, you can see it. It's a little bit of his elbow. Nothing like that. It's more so this idealistic, conceptual soul. And you either got it or you don't got it. Rabo beat himself up forever because he just didn't got it. For so long, he grappled with how do I create soul, how do I add this, and how do I do this? And his biggest failure in painting came with the post-World War II modern miracle of the satin de Ralo, which is a paint, an acrylic paint that he used for a series of collections of paintings. And when he sold them, a couple weeks after that, they were put in this big corporate lobby. The paint just peeled off and fell on the floor, and the paintings were just totally destroyed. So these paintings, which are sold for a considerable amount of money to this corporate lobby, were then just totally useless and destroyed, or just blank canvases. And he got his name knocked up in the dictionary. He got his name put up in a dictionary as a total fiasco that ruins one's life and reputation. And I'm gonna add it right here, even though it's not a real dictionary entry, but here's the Urban Dictionary entry. Rabo's whole reputation and motivation and belief in himself falls apart because of that. And he gives up on painting. It becomes his biggest regret, because it's when everything formed just kind of like fell apart. Everything was already falling apart by then, but specifically his work as a painter just crumbled. And around this time, a lot of his friends who were painters either died or killed themselves, drank themselves to death, and a lot of things along those lines. And by this point in the story, Rabo is a 71-year-old man just living it up in the Hamptons all by himself, basically. He's got a couple friends, and this girl, Cersei Berman, who kind of acts as a catalyst for getting him back into feeling alive again, are the only people that he comes in contact with. And even then, they're kind of like jabbing and making fun of him and kind of like rile him up a little bit. It's funny. Spoiler alert, just so you know. There's a potato barn, and this is where the idea of Bluebeard comes in. Bluebeard having the room that none of the wives could come in, and then the one wife opens it up and he like chops the wife's head off and throws her in the room where all the other dead bodies of the wives are. In this one, Rabo is Bluebeard, Cersei Berman's his wife, even though they're not married, and the potato barn is the room. Now, Rabo doesn't kill Cersei, but the potato barn does hold his greatest secret, and this is where the spoiler comes in. He gets a call one day from the same hotel lobby, the receptionist of the hotel lobby, and it's like, hey, there's all these white canvases down here, and I kind of just remembered this, and I said, do you want these canvases back? And there's this great line that Vonnegut uses, and I think it's a really succinct way of describing this moment. And Rabo says to the woman on the phone, after not responding for a couple minutes, it's as if you just asked me if I was ready to grow up. Now, I think that's a great idea, you know, to have your biggest failure where the bulk of your shame and regret is held. And to have that confronted, it's like, hey, would you like the exact, like, kind of destroyed object? Do you want it back? Just this white canvas. And I think it's a great way of prompting growth in a mental way. Now, Rabo takes it, and it's so hard to describe. You almost have to read the whole book to understand it. And if you haven't read the whole book, I almost don't want to spoil what, you know, the whole thing becomes, because it is so special. But be warned, I'm about to tell you. At the end of World War II, Rabo is coming out of like his war, because he was a prisoner of war near the end of it. And he comes out kind of on this bank, and he sees this huge valley. And Rabo saw survivors of the Holocaust, German soldiers that were being held, these people here, and it was this conglomeration of people kind of coming into this valley. This probably didn't happen, but at the end of World War II, Rabo saw this just huge, beautiful scene and the sun coming up, and he paints that. But ultimately, Rabo doesn't just paint that scene he saw on that fateful day. He adds a little bit of himself, of the painter, into it, and he puts in this painting what had long eluded him, soul. But I think that dichotomy, or not dichotomy, but that progression of, you know, paint strips off the thing, and, you know, you're like, oh, my whole life and my work, my reputation is gone. Years down the road, you're just wallowing in regret, and someone calls you and it's like, hey, do you want the canvases back? We actually still have them. And you're just like, what? And then you take those canvases and you repurpose them with the thing that you've been looking for forever. And in that way, you are not fixing your mistakes, but you're learning from them, you're growing from them, and you learn that you can teach a dog new tricks or an old dog new tricks. And I think that's a lot of the themes of mistakes here, that everyone has shame and regret, but when you wallow in your shame and regret too long, it just festers, it gets worse. It's kind of a simple understanding of shame and regret. However, when you confront it and you repurpose it and you do better and you do what you knew you were supposed to do, that's all you can do. And when you do that, you do it well, and you give yourself up to it, it does become an experience that fixes at least your pain and the scars that develop from those moments. And those mistakes end up becoming the catalyst for who you wanted to become all along. So I'm only 21 years old, so my mistakes are still in the making, and I hope to make a ton more before I'm all done. I do love this book because it's helped me in my own little period, and I think that as I go on in my life, I want to confront my mistakes. I want to look my mistakes in the eyes and be like, what can I do? That was a pretty good video. That was my 4th video now. Took a little break for a couple of weeks because, but we get back to the groove all of a sudden. And thank you guys for watching. I have a Substack, I have a Twitter, I have an Instagram. Links will be in the bottom. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it if you did. Feeling better every single time I do this. But thank you. Thank you for watching. Peace.